Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. In my last video, I worked on API in MERN stack, and this video we will be working on React Redux RTK query. And first of all, I'd like to show you what exactly we'll be doing. So this would be something, our application will be something like this, where we can create something and it's added here, and we'd like to go ahead and edit this title last, and it sure did update. And I'd like to go ahead and delete this first record, bring cat food, and delete works too. So this is what we will be building today, and not today, but in today's video we will be only working on read operation. That's exactly what we can see here, and also we'll be using router and this create node. So before going through our code, let's understand how this RTK query works. So we have to understand the concept of entity adapter in this case. Using entity adapter, we can create initial state, which actually gives you something like this, table with entities and IDs. So if you go inside IDs, like we have uh, 5 records here, okay? So IDs is a table which only has the ID and it's an array, it can be iterated. And if you go down and see these entities, it has the entire data and the ID over here. And this ID that you can see here is being mapped through IDs table. So ID, using this ID, we will map the data in entities table. So that's the concept of entity adapter. And using entity adapter, we can use selectors and use things like select by ID and select all. And what we can do is, now I'd like to go ahead and show you my code over here. Initially, we're going to create an API slice, and we will be creating API, and we will be providing this URL, base URL, and tag types is like the name of our model. So if we have more than one model, like let's assume we have another model named user, we're going to keep it like this. Maybe another model too, books. So that's what is the concept of tag, and it's very important in caching, memory management and caching. So we have to use this on every endpoint. And this endpoint is, we're going to pass this builder right now. Right now, just this builder, but every features has API slice where we're going to use this builder and build endpoints. So this is all about API slice. And another thing I'd like to mention is using this fetch best query. It's just like Axios. And if you go to Nodes API slice, oh, let's also talk about store.js. So basically we have a reducer inside stores, right? So we're giving this reducer path, and this is the reducer path, okay? And we're going to use middleware, and we're going to concat API slice middleware here, and DevTools will be true because we might want to use DevTools in future. And we're going to use this store on our index.js with the provider here. Okay, and let's talk about Nodes API slice, because this is the most important part and kind of difficult also to understand. So I had mentioned about create entity adapter just a while ago. So this console.log initial state, this is exactly what was being printed in the beginning. So this initial state, that so it initializes because it doesn't have anything at the moment, right? So using this, creating this entity adapter and uh, using this nodes adapter with initial state will help us initialize the state, and that's what we just got. Right now it's empty, but this will help us get normalized data format. This is called normalized data format, okay? And the other thing would be we are using API slice, which is this file. Okay, we'll be working on this file and we will be injecting our endpoints over here, and we'll be using builder to build the endpoints. So as you can see, it says API slice dot inject endpoints. We're going to inject endpoints, and builder will build the endpoints that we will be injecting, and it's a function. So we're going to pass our endpoints that will be read nodes, and this endpoint is exactly same as our controller JS here inside our controllers. So this read nodes, that's exactly what it is. So we're going to have 4 endpoints: create node, update node, and delete node. Okay, and let's go to read nodes. Also, I'd like to tell you that only read nodes is kind of difficult to understand. Other 3 endpoints would be slightly easier, okay? So hang on with me here. So this is going to be the endpoints, and we're going to use this builder.query to build endpoints. And the query would be a function with an arrow, and this is going to be our route, okay? So if you go down inside router on our API, okay? I'm sorry, not this file. It should be on server. So this is the route. This is exactly what we are passing in the query here. And I'd also like to mention that we are using builder.query because in read nodes we are passing query to just read something. But in case of create node and update node, we'll be passing mutation, okay? We're going to change something. Here it's just a query, we're asking for something. That's why we're using query. That's how it works. And so this query, it's using this route, okay? And this validate status, what it means is it's going to check if our response.status is 200, that is okay, and result is error is false. So it means there is no error. That's all it's going to check. And transform response is quite important concept here, because if you go to our console, you can see MongoDB is giving us ID, and it's not just ID, it's underscore ID, okay? And our we use in MERN stack, we use just the ID. So what this does is this node underscore ID will be assigned to node.id, okay? And that's how, if it was node.id, mongoose would not understand. So what, it's just going to transform the response, that's all. And we're going to return this, and using nodes adapter.setAll, we're going to assign this new id, that is node dot underscore id, to our initial state. Very important, because everything happens through initial state using this entity adapter. Everything, because we will be working on our normalized data format. So in changing the valid response to initial state is very important. We're going to uh, set this new transformed response to our initial state, and we're going to return it. All right, that's all. And provides tags. So this is also very important, because RTK query works on caching. Until we invalidate the cache memory, or uh, if we do, if we add something, if we create a new node, and if we do not refresh that specific model, it does not refresh automatically, it won't refresh the cache data. Okay, so to do that, we're using this. And right now, not much in this, because we're just going to read, but in create node, we're going to invalidate the tags. Okay, in other also update node, we're going to use this a lot. In update node, we will be giving specific id of what should be updated. We'll look into it in just a second, but let's understand this provide tags. There is result, there is error, and there's argument. Now what it wants to do is, it's asking us to check if result dot IDs. We're using this question mark. If you are concerned about this, it means that if there is no IDs, if the value is 0, it's not going to give you any error, it's just going to make it undefined, that's it. And it's going to check if result.ids have some value or not, which means if you see this, so this is IDs. We have entities and IDs, remember? So IDs means it has arrays of IDs. So it's going to check if there are data inside IDs table or not. If there is, so it's going to return type as node, that is the model name, tag, or whatever you'd like to call, and going to pass ID as list, because IDs is a list of array. It's a list, it's an array, okay? So ID is list. And we're going to map through IDs, and so it's list because there's multiple IDs, but here once you map, we're going to go through only one ID at a time, so ID will just be ID, so we'll keep it ID only. And else we're going to return same as this. Okay, and that's it with the endpoints, and this is going to build the endpoints, and it's going to transform the response, and then work on our provides tags. And then if you go down, if you see, this is the endpoint, read notes, this use in front and query at the back of read notes, it's added by RTK query. So this is the hook created by RTK query automatically to help us. So let's do like this. I'm gonna so we're going to do export const and use this read notes query in it. Let's make it an object, and we are not going to work on these three for now. We're just going to work on read notes query, and it's going to be notes API slice. That's the file name. Okay, I'm sorry, not the file name, but this. Our file name should have been in should be small n, but we'll work on that in our project. Okay, and so I also like to talk about this create selector concept. So using this, so I'm doing export const select notes result. Okay, and in this I'm going to put notes API slice, which is this file dot endpoints, and this is going to be the endpoint read notes. I'm going to chain this with select function. I'm going to select everything from the endpoint read notes. It's going to assign the value inside select notes result, but that has to be changed into data in order to get that value or get the data back. It has to be changed to data. So using this create selector, it does that automatically. So we're not going to export, we're just going to hit const select notes not result data this time. And you can actually keep whatever you like, but this is understandable. Okay, so we're going to use this create selector that we have imported on top from Redux.js toolkit, and inside create selector we're going to pass this result that we received, the entire data, and then we're going to change this to data, and this is going to give us the normalized state object with IDs and entities. Okay, so basically this is very important step to normalize our data. And normalize means changing the state object with IDs and entities, just like these IDs with arrays of IDs and entities with everything but mapped with IDs. Okay, let me plug on my charger. And the last thing I'd like to talk about would be get selectors. So since we have already created selector, we are able to use this get selector and use selector functions. Okay, so what this get selector does is these are the keywords automatically generated by RTK query, and we are assigning these values to these, because if we just if we leave it select all or select by ID, we wouldn't know which select by which ID of what model. So select node by ID will denote that select the ID from node tag or model. Okay, so that's how we name these, and this should be nodes adapter once again, and dot get selectors, and I'm going to change the state. If nothing, then we're going to pass our initial state. Okay, and that's all. And if you go to our read notes, which will be this page, read notes, so we are going to use this query, use read notes query, which is, let's split the screen. There you go. So if you remember, we used this use read notes query. This is a hook automatically created by RTK, and we're going to use this is read notes is the endpoint, and we're going to add use and query, and that's exactly what's imported from here. And we're going to import node. That's fairly understandable, and let's understand more. So now here what happens is that using this hook as function here, we are able to get data, is loading, is success, is error, and a lot of things actually. So we assign nodes for data because, as I mentioned, we're going to have multiple models or tags. So we're not going to call everything by data. So specifically this, we're going to assign, refer this by nodes, okay? We're going to let content here, and if it's loading, we're going to put content as loading. If there is error, we're going to put it like something like this, or just error occurred. That's it. And if it's a success, then what we want to do is we're going to destructure this nodes. So this nodes has entities and IDs as a normalized state, right? So remember, when this uh, when when we get this from our nodes API slice, when we get this hook from nodes API slice and we import this over here, we are able to use data, and we're naming this data to nodes. And now using, we can destructure nodes into IDs and entities. So this console log IDs and entities in line 26 and 27, this is IDs and this is entities. That's exactly what I console log over here, okay? So we are able to use these. So, and if IDs.length means checking that there is something inside the table IDs, we're mapping the ID, and we're creating this another component, and we're passing key as ID, one ID, and passing node ID as node ID, and inside content we're going to create a table where we are going to pass this table content here, okay? And let's go inside this node.js. Something to understand, just one thing actually. So we don't need to understand anything. We don't need to understand all these. Let's see if there is anything. Let's see if there is node ID or not. So it's saying node ID. So it's iterating through all the node IDs, like all 5, right? And this is happening from inside node.js page. So, alright, so we're getting this from here, okay? And now using this use selector, we are getting the state and assigning inside node. And this select node by ID is, let me split the screen, and this. So we are allowed to use this select node by ID. If we had left it like this, we'd be select by ID over here, not node by ID, okay? and we're going to pass the state and node ID. So it's saying state such that select node by ID state, and we're passing state and ID will be the key. This, okay, and that way we're going to get node, and we are able to access node.title, node.description exactly in the browser exactly like this. So it says node is an object. So if you go to my here, this one, if we we could do node dot title, node dot description, but if we just keep node, then after using this use selector, it's going to give you an object. Node is an object like this, okay? This is all I'd like to show you, and let's just start working on this quickly.